We've been slowly building towards Traffic Department's action sequence by taking on more complicated tasks. This time we'll design the briefing scenes, which include screens, banners, pop-ups, and the dialogue sequence. We'll take a close look at the first mission and generalize a design that'll apply to every briefing scene in the game. Our solution ties together several sources of hard-coded data from the game binary that we'll work with when we program next time. Let's go right to the design document. This time we're thinking about the briefing room and how we can build GameMaker object interactions that can support all 59 briefings. Now you're probably thinking that since all of the briefings are unique, we'll have to create a different solution for each mission. Now this is true to an extent, but all of the briefings include a common set of components which are connected together differently to produce individual briefings. We'll identify those components and consider a storyboard approach to connecting them. Let's think about the flow of a mission briefing. Every mission begins with a banner that shows the mission number and title. Now, I think every mission title follows with a full screen pop-up that includes 2 or 3 lines of overlay text showing you the location and the time. We'll see this in a minute when we load up the first mission briefing again in DOSBox. Every briefing includes a dialogue sequence, and many of them have at least 2. Sometimes a briefing has a custom graphic pop-up with more text. Now this won't happen in the first mission, but we'll need to use it several times in the first episode. The shortest path that we see in practice is the mission banner, followed by an SCR screen describing the setting, then a dialogue sequence before going to the mission. Now mission 1 follows this pattern exactly. Now many scenes have multiple dialogue sequences with setting changes in between, so this arrow should be bidirectional. Now the PIC pop-up usually sits between dialogue sequences, so we'll have to move back and forth. Now believe it or not, an interstitial banner will sometimes be between dialogue sequences as well, saying something like "meanwhile" or "later that day." So since these events could occur in any order, we'll have a singleton object that creates child objects which performs these events. Now since this is a fairly dense network of connections, we'll simplify the interactions by allowing any type of object to be created in any order. We'll also load all of the necessary data into this object and hand it to the child objects as needed. We'll call the object obj briefing. It'll have a fairly robust create event since it holds all of the game data. Keyboard and references are always there. Then we'll define the briefing states as an enum. Now all these child objects coincide with a state since there's never more than one active child at a time. We'll control the sequence with a storyboard that we'll have to put together. I'll have it loaded on creation. And we'll build a storyboard for mission 1 shortly. Then we'll need mission titles. We'll also load the dialogue once in this object rather than load it twice during the briefing if we have multiple dialogue sequences. Then there's some miscellaneous variables. We'll need to process each state and the input, which I think will only include the ability to skip everything. Then we need to clean up. Now the briefing object won't display anything directly, it just coordinates the child objects by creating them at the right time during the step event. So let's make a slide for these objects and we'll go through mission 1 in DOSBox and grab screenshots and I'll put them on the appropriate slide. Now SCR and PIC are so similar that I'll put them on one screen. We'll focus mostly on the SCR implementation since that applies to mission 1. Alright, in DOSBox we'll go through mission 1 dialogue and grab the screenshots. This is the banner for the mission. And here we have the SCR settings screen. This is the dialogue sequence. Let's put these screenshots on our slides and we'll go through each one. The banner is pretty simple. It displays centered text in red in a different font. And we always see a mission banner, but sometimes there's a banner that says something else. The flow through the banner object is very simple. The text fades in, it waits for user input, and then fades out. Now the code is simple as well, but there's one thing different. The master briefing object will pass the required text to the banner, but the banner doesn't know the text during creation, so we'll have to defer the calculation of the text position until the step event. We'll initialize the holders for the variables during create. Now everything else here looks like code blocks that we've seen in other objects, so I'll skip right through them. Now the SCR loading object looks almost like the intro object, except there's no scrolling text. Now the screen fades in along with the text, then we wait before both of them go out. Now the PIC is the same except the screen isn't full, but it is centered. Now the biggest point here is still that both the screen and the text information are passed by the briefing object. Now the dialogue object is more complex than the others. It'll draw the characters and parse the dialogue. To handle it, we'll use states. The first is reading the upcoming dialogue, the second involves writing it to the window, and the final waits for the user input. Now reading involves processing those special hex characters that we analyzed about 10 videos ago. We won't use all the codes that we discovered there, but there are the important ones. Hex 01 sets up the actors in the scene. Hex 2 signals a new text line with a reference to the speaker. Hex 5 is a text pause and will wait for user input. Now Hex 6 starts every scene, and finally Hex 64 will end the scene. Now the writing and the waiting are more self-explanatory, so I'll put those off until the programming video. The object itself needs a couple more items compared to the SCR screen. We'll have to define our state enumerator on create. Then we'll handle those states during step, and we'll draw the components. Just like all other child objects, the master object will pass information to it. For dialogue, we need to know the scene. So all of these objects support the display of the briefing, but we still need to tell the master object how to load these objects. We have to create a storyboard for each mission that will drive the creation of the objects with the right data and in the right order. Let's dedicate a slide to a possible storyboard for the first mission. We'll start it in sort of a pseudocode format. First, we need to create a banner that has the mission title, which is Mission 1, Operation Recon. Then we'll create the SCR loader with the hanger screen, which I remember is hanger1.scr. The screen will have some text overlay. I think it's upper hanger, traffic department, and the date. Then we'll show the dialogue sequence for the first scene. Now finally, we'll go to the mission. Now let's massage this pseudocode into something that we can use in GameMaker. A 2D array is a possible data structure. Now the first dimension is the current mission, and the second dimension will hold the instruction sequence for the mission. So in GameMaker, we'll make an array that looks an awful lot like this. We'll call the array brief, and the first dimension says we're on mission 1, and the first event will hold the state that the briefing object will take first. We'll call it banner as to signal the creation of a banner object. Then we'll pass it the mission title, which I'll already have all the titles loaded in an array, probably with this name. After the banner is finished, we'll change to the SCR state and load that object with the following parameters. The screen, whatever the name is, and the 3 lines of text. Then we'll load the dialog object with the first scene. The first scene will probably be indexed with 0. Then we'll signal the end of the briefing. So the pattern goes like this. We set a briefing state, which will conveniently be the name of the child object that creates. Between state changes, we'll put the arguments to execute with that object. Now this is kind of a flat format of a function call, similar to how you'd use a stack to push a function pointer and then its parameters. Well, I'm going to hard code this into the create object next time. But if we had stored the information in an external file and loaded it into the array at runtime, then modders could edit the mission files to create basically any variation of the briefing that they wanted. It's also easier to have the community help program all the storyboards rather than having a lone developer grind everything out. So this is how we'll handle the dialogue sequence. And for those of you familiar with object patterns, we've just designed an abstract factory in GameMaker. Next time we'll code this up and hopefully it'll look just like the original game.